Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we get to take a look at the first ever footage of a Great League of Yveltal in Go Battle League. Great League of Yveltal was briefly available when the Go Pass feature was introduced, however, it has been banned from every Great League meta up until now. For the new Great League Holiday Cup that just rotated in, whether intentional or not, Great League of Yveltal is actually eligible. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, CostPent, so many thanks for the battle submission. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at Great League of Yveltal for the very first time. Hopping into the first match, picking up a very bad lead Furret into Wigglytuff. Unfortunately, the backline matchups are even worse, which means Furret has to stay in one of its worst meta matchups. Furret gets absolutely crushed by Wigglytuff, but this is a triple Sucker Punch team. This team takes a gamble that Wigglytuff is not a real Pokemon, and unfortunately Wigglytuff is here, and this team is in very grave danger of being swept. Icy Wind is going to undo that Trailblaze boost, and now Wigglytuff is going to be hit with a +0 Swift. Swift would not knock out Wigglytuff, thank goodness, decides not to put up the shield, and that is very good news for the Yveltal and the Galarian Moltres in the back. Swift is going to land, getting Furret deep into the red, in comes Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres snipes down with Sucker Punches, and opponent is going to be sending out Annihilate. Annihilate will be able to inflict some pretty big damage with Ice Punch. This is not the Shadow Annihilate, which means they actually take the Sucker Punch damage quite a bit better. Annihilate massively overfarming, and they overfarm too much. A miscount from the opponent, and that's going to cost them. Fly is going to get the final shield. Annihilate decides to throw energy at long last. They should just go for the Rage Fist and go for the full farm down here. Rage Fist actually takes the knockout. They don't go for another charge, and in comes Yveltal. Yveltal, these Sucker Punches adding up. Catch attempt onto the Furret is unsuccessful, but the Sucker Punch goes through. This means that Yveltal will get the farm down here. Annihilate went for the close combat. In the back is a Rangaroo. There's nothing they can do against Yveltal. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. Hopping into the next match, picking up a very bad lead, Furret into Galarian Moltres. Unfortunately, the leads are absolutely miserable to start off with this team. Hopefully this team will still be able to bounce back and get a win though, because that Wigglytuff lead looked basically unwinnable, and somehow the team found a way to win because the Oranguru had nowhere to go. Galarian Moltres is going to be switching into Galarian Moltres, putting up the shield as the opponent goes for the fly. Sucker Punches really don't add up as much as you'd like in this matchup. Galarian Moltres will be able to take the knockout here unless the opponent puts up the shield, but they do just that. This is a CMP tied to a fly. It cannot be a Brave Bird, so it is a pretty safe no shield. Look at how much value the opponent got out of their Galarian Moltres. They must be absolutely ecstatic. They got good damage onto the Furret. They basically KO'd the Galarian Moltres, and now they're going to send in Ludicolo. Ludicolo gets a very aggressive Astonish farm down, and in comes Furret. Unfortunately, Furret, having already taken some damage in this match, I don't think it's going to survive the Leaf Storm. Leaf Storm into the Furret, takes the knockout, and it's all up to Yveltal. In comes Yveltal. In the back is the perfect Pokemon for Yveltal to see. It is Aegislash. Look at Aegislash getting absolutely deleted by these Sucker Punches. Yveltal farms up to the back-to-back Dark Pulses. Dark Pulse into the Aegislash will hit for devastating damage. Aegislash puts up the shield, but it's too little too late. Aegislash is just too clunky. Dark Pulse takes the knockout. Back in comes Ludicolo. Opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes the match. We move to game number 3. Furret's been getting shredded on the lead so far, and unfortunately that's a trend that's going to continue as Furret has its third losing lead in a row, leading into Powder Snow, Alolan Ninetales. Opponent tries for a Brick Break catch onto Spiritomb, but this Furret is not running Brick Break. Furret holds the energy, sends Yveltal into the Spiritomb, but Yveltal is down energy, which means it's going to have to put up a shield. These Sucker Punches are shredding Spiritomb. Yveltal is going to strike back with Oblivion Wing, looking to take the knockout and boost up its defense. But the shield comes up from Spiritomb. Spiritomb going to fire off the Rock Tomb. Even at +1 defense, I don't think Yveltal can hang on. Yveltal shields up the Rock Tomb, going for Oblivion Wing. Opponent tries for a snipe with the Alolan Ninetales, but Switch takes a turn, which means instead of getting the snipe, they actually get a catch of the Oblivion Wing, and now back in comes Furret. Yveltal has been saved. Furret's Trailblaze is going to be shielded. Furret going to try and make it to the Swift as the Alolan Ninetales fires off its energy. That's a dazzling gleam. Furret gets absolutely rocked, and Furret gets farmed down. And this is very, very difficult because how do you get rid of this Alolan Ninetales? One of these Pokemon is going to have to take a Weather Ball, and unfortunately, it's going to be Yveltal. In comes Yveltal. Yveltal gonna get KO'd by the Weather Ball. In comes Galarian Moltres, and the final Pokemon in the back is Licky, and that's really not what you're hoping to see as Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres will fire up the Brave Bird, hoping to take the knockout here. Brave Bird does not take the knockout, no! So close! I thought for a second it did, but it did not. Galarian Moltres gets the farm down, but it's too debuffed and too low. Ninetales gets the farm down, and unfortunately that game will end in defeat. We move to the next match. Furret picks up its first decent lead of this entire video, leading into Talonflame. The matchup for Furret is a lot better into the Shadow, just because the Shadow gets absolutely deleted by Sucker Punches. But considering that Furret's Sucker Punch is not resisted in this matchup, Furret will definitely take it compared to the leads that it's been seeing. Furret probably going to be no shielding here, and does. Talonflame goes for the Flame Charge, just looking to ramp up its attack. Furret just going to let itself get KO'd, and probably take farm on the Great League Yveltal. Oh, it's actually going to be the Galarian Moltres. Moltres gets a 2 Sucker Punch head start, and the opponent's going to be sending in Licky. Obviously, Licky, not what you're hoping to see when you have 2 Dark Flyers in the back, but at the very least, Galarian Moltres can take a Body Slam pretty comfortably. Galarian Moltres farming up past the Brave Bird, going for the Fly, expecting the opponent is going to be putting up the shield. The Fly bait gets no shielded, and that is very unfortunate. It does get the Licky low, but the opponent overfarms too much, giving Galarian Moltres a second Fly and the ability to force a shield. Licky doubles up on Body Slams. Galarian Moltres just going to get KO'd, and from here on out, it's all up to Yveltal. In comes Yveltal. Yveltal snipes down with Sucker Punches, denying that Body Slam, and in the back is Diggersby, and this opponent is about to have an absolutely miserable day. Not only is Diggersby forced to go for Fire Punches, but Yveltal's going to be shielding and ramping itself up with Oblivion Wing. Oblivion Wing is going to boost Yveltal's defense more and more, which means these quick attacks do less and less damage. The second shield comes up, Yveltal knows it has Diggersby cornered. There's just nothing that Diggersby can do. Diggersby just in absolute shambles as Oblivion Wing number 2 is coming through. That's going to be getting Diggersby very low. Diggersby is going to go for the Fire Punch, and this is about to be pathetic damage. Fire Punch onto Yveltal does absolutely nothing. Diggersby gets Sucker Punch down, and that's a good game. Hopping into the next match, leading Furret into Gourgeist, a pretty nice lead for the Furret. Obviously, 2 better answers in the back. Furret going to be staying in this matchup for now. Opponent banks some energy and sends in Licky. Gourgeist is basically dead in the back. The Gourgeist isn't really going to be able to do anything into the Galarian Moltres Yveltal backline, so staying in with the Furret is honestly going to work out very nicely here. The only worry would be is if the opponent has another anti-flyer in the back, which is pretty likely considering their lead is Gourgeist. The boosted Swift coming out from the Furret is going to be no shielded by the Licky. Licky forced to throw energy, trying to take the knockout onto Furret, but Furret should survive the Body Slam. Body Slam lands, Furret gets that farm down and exits with a Swift loaded. Opponent sends back in the Gourgeist. This is a +1 Trailblaze, but it is still going to be resisted, so Gourgeist is not going to be shielding. In comes Yveltal. Yveltal going to be answered with Annihilate. Annihilate's going to be boosting itself up with the Rage Fist, but Yveltal can boost its defense to match by going for the Oblivion Wing. There's Rage Fist from the opponent. Annihilate, not really the anti-flyer that I was expecting in the back. Annihilate's counters are boosted by the Rage Fist, but Yveltal just boosted up its defense. It's going to be a race to the finish. It's a simultaneous knockout, and that's going to be a win as Galarian Moltres Sucker Punches down the Gourgeist and takes home the victory. We move to the next match, leading Furret into its first truly good lead. That is Sableye. The entire team counters Sableye. Opponent safe switches into Doublade. Doublade does have Sacred Sword, and that's going to get caught onto the Great League Yveltal. Oh my goodness. Yveltal, it's going to not mind that Sacred Sword damage whatsoever. Opponent, they can't force a shield with Sacred Sword. They'd have to get to the Gyro Ball, which I think they just did. They barely had enough HP to make the Gyro Ball and actually force a shield. Opponent brings back in the Sableye. How weak are they to Dark Flying that they're bringing in Sableye here? Sableye gets crushed by Oblivion Wing. Oblivion Wing can't quite set up the farm down, but Yveltal's double shielding. Yveltal thinking maybe they're just triple weak in the back, but no, they're not. They had a Wigglytuff in the back this entire time, and they're counting on this Wigglytuff with 2 shields to try and sweep. Shield comes up from Wigglytuff. They're going to be double shielding everything as Furret fires off the Swift. Furret just trying to lock in a little bit of damage, but the opponent says no. They double shield the Wigglytuff, and this is going to be a very tricky game to play out of. The good news is Charms don't do a lot of damage to Furret, and Furret is this team's best ability to get damage onto the Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff is going to be firing back here, going for the Icy Wind, but Icy Wind does not do much. Furret is guaranteed to make it to a Trailblaze. Trailblaze will be getting the Wigglytuff pretty low. There's still an entire Galarian Moltres in the back, and in comes the Moltres. Moltres going to try for a farm down, unable to get there. Wigglytuff makes the Icy Wind. Icy Wind is going to be getting the Moltres very low. Moltres able to hang on. Can Moltres get the farm down? Yes, it can. Moltres farms down the Wigglytuff, and for a second time, this team that is triple weak to Wigglytuff KOs Wigglytuff, and that's a good game. We move to the next match. Furret is going to be greeted with one of its fellow normal types in the lead in Litleo. Obviously a matchup where Brick Break would be nice, but Furret can still play it out pretty neutrally. Opponent safe switches Annihilate, and things could get quite scary. Furret not going to switch out, going to stay on the field and go for the Trailblaze, hoping the opponent decides to no shield, but they do put up the shield, and now in comes Yveltal. Yveltal could potentially try and go for a double shield and a farm down. Does Annihilate go for the Rage Fist bait? Annihilate does not. It goes for the Ice Punch instead. Yveltal not going to play to the CMP tie, instead going to go for a full farm down, just trying to exit with as much energy as possible as Annihilate goes for a second Ice Punch. Are they going to be bringing back into Litleo? The answer is yes. Litleo hits the field. Yveltal firing off Oblivion Wing. Oblivion Wing does big damage and boosts up Yveltal. Yveltal makes it to Oblivion Wing number 2. Now Litleo has to decide, is this energy worth its final shield? Litleo says no, fully sacrificing it. It's Chestnut in the back, and Chestnut could potentially sweep this. It's going to come down to Chestnut moveset and whether they can potentially go for a Frenzy into a double superpower. And that Frenzy did a lot of damage. Frenzy planned a very powerful attack, even when resisted. And I believe this Chestnut is actually going to sweep here. Galarian Moltres cannot make it to its charge attack. It's just getting knocked out by the Chestnut. Superpower takes the KO. And unfortunately, the Yveltal's very low. In comes the Furret. And this is just going to be a very tricky game to win, but the catch! Oh my goodness! The catch onto Yveltal, catching the superpower, and just like that, Costpet keeps finding a way. These games look so over, and Costpet, I guess, takes that personally, because Costpet keeps winning. 2 Wigglytuffs, and then a shield advantage Chestnut. Not a problem for him. He's just taking home the wins. Good lead in the next match. Furret into Shadow Sableye. Furret with the foul play buff is typically able to win the Zero Shield, so after Furret lands the Trailblaze, Furret has to decide, is it worth switching into the Galarian Moltres, or do you stay in, get energy, and try and go for the catch? Trailblaze is going to land, in comes Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres able to snipe down with Sucker Punches, and down goes Sableye. Out comes Annihilate. These counters could get quite scary, but because this is the Shadow Annihilate, the thing to watch is the Sucker Punches. These Sucker Punches actually do big damage onto the Annihilate. Moltres is going to no shield as Ape ramps up with a Rage Fist. Galarian Moltres is going to try and get to the Fly. Oh no, the overtap had the Fly, unable to click it, and now in comes Yveltal. Opponents only going to be clicking Rage Fist from here on out, just trying to ramp up as much damage as they possibly can. Yveltal gets that farm down. What's in the back? It's a Alolan Marowak, and Alolan Marowak's only hope is to try and Fire Spin down. But Yveltal says, let's make that a little bit more difficult by boosting up with Oblivion Wing. Now suddenly those Fire Spins not as threatening, and that's a game-winning boost from Oblivion Wing. It gets guaranteed boost this season. That pays off in a massive way, and that is a good game. Bit of a shorter video today, but I did want to get footage out there of the first Great League Yveltal to be played in Go Battle League. Great League Yveltal has not had a global release since it was only in the early testing stages of the Go Pass, and I believe they rolled those out by country. So there are a few countries, I believe Canada and Europe maybe, who actually had access to the Great League Yveltal, whereas I know the United States didn't, because otherwise I would have one, and unfortunately I do not. The good news is Great League Yveltal, it's not a particularly meta-relevant Pokemon. It's definitely more of a Pokemon for fun, but with the ability to boost itself up with Oblivion Wing, that does actually give it slight play in some of these cups when it is allowed. Now the big question is, was it allowed in this cup by design, or was it one of the classic Niantic/Scopely ban list errors? Well, I think the jury's still out on that. I'll make the video on it so that way, at the very least, they will know that it's a thing that is allowed, and they get to decide whether that was something that was intentional or whether it was something that was meant to be banned. Because this Pokemon has been out for quite a while, but it's always been banned from Go Battle League, presumably due to the fact that only some people had it and not everyone had a chance to get it. So that way, it didn't cause any unfair advantages or anything like that. Again, massive thank you to CostBent for sending in this footage. CostBent mentioned that they had to stay up till like 2 or 3 in the morning to get this footage, so much appreciated for battling that late. And hey, Great League of Yveltal, definitely a cool collector's item. And I do hope that when I do cast some regionals later this competitive season, that I can find someone who does have a spare one, because actually having one of my own on my account would be something that would be incredibly cool. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And an extra special thank you, as always, to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.